You're on a trail in the middle of the afternoon. Sun's out. Other hikers passed you 20 minutes ago. Nothing about this feels dangerous. Then you glance over your shoulder, and there it is. Something low, something quiet, moving at exactly your pace, maybe 40 yards back. It's not charging. It's not crouching. It's just there, walking the same direction you're walking, and you realize it's been there longer than you want to think about. Every nerve in your body says the same thing. You're being hunted. So why does a predator follow you in broad daylight? Or is that feeling, that old gut-level certainty that you are prey, the one thing you got completely wrong? Let's start with the most common version of this, because it happens more than most people realize, and almost nobody reads it correctly. In the spring, during denning and pup rearing season, wildlife agencies across North America get the same calls. Joggers, dog walkers, hikers, all reporting the same thing. A coyote following them on a trail, staying back maybe 50 feet, not growling, not showing teeth, just pacing them. And it feels like stalking, except it's not. Coyotes sometimes escort perceived threats away from their pups. They don't want to fight you. They don't want to eat you. They want you gone. With a leashed dog, the escort is usually silent, calm, almost polite. With an off-leash dog, that can trigger a much stronger territorial response, because a loose dog is a real threat to a pup, and that changes the math entirely. That coyote on the trail behind you wasn't sizing you up for a meal. It was walking you to the door. But coyotes are 35 pounds. That's easy to shrug off. What about the things that could actually kill you? A study published in November 2024 from UC Davis, Cal Poly Pomona, and the National Park Service quietly reframes the whole picture. They tracked mountain lions across greater Los Angeles, animals sharing habitat with millions of people, and found that lions in areas with heavy human recreation had shifted their entire daily schedule. They went nocturnal, not slightly, dramatically. Lions in remote areas were most active at dawn and dusk, the way their biology is wired. Lions near trails and parks pushed their activity deep into the night. Females were generally more active closer to sunrise, possibly because they were balancing two pressures at once, avoiding people and avoiding male lions. They rearranged their entire lives around your jogging schedule. Honestly, they're putting in more effort to avoid you than most people put into avoiding their neighbors. So when a mountain lion does follow you in daylight, something unusual is happening. And the most famous case of it ever caught on camera proves it. In October 2020, a hiker named Kyle Burgess was on a trail in Slate Canyon, Utah, when he noticed what he thought were bobcat kittens. He pulled out his phone. Then the mother appeared. A cougar. For 6 minutes, she followed him, she lunged, she swiped. 60 million people watched the video and called it a predator attack. Except it wasn't. Wildlife experts, including a researcher from Living with Lions, reviewed the footage and said the same thing. She wasn't hunting Burgess. She was pushing him away from her cubs. The most watched predator encounter on the internet wasn't a hunt. It was a mother who found a stranger too close to her children. Here's where it gets harder to dismiss. Wolves are not protecting cubs when they shadow you. They're doing something stranger. In 2023, a team led by Kristen Barker published a study in the Journal of Animal Ecology looking at 170 wolf kill sites across Jackson Hole, Wyoming. The landscape ranged from heavily protected federal land to private property with almost no restrictions on human activity. They wanted to know, do wolves avoid humans out of some deep instinct, or is something more deliberate going on? What they found was unsettling in a way that's hard to put simply. Wolves avoided humans where prey was plentiful. They killed their prey far from roads, far from buildings, far from anywhere a person might appear. But where prey was scarce, the avoidance weakened. The wolves moved closer to people. Not because they lost their fear, because the food situation changed, and they adjusted. That's not instinct running on autopilot. Behaviorally, it looks almost like a calculation. How valuable is the prey, and how much human risk is worth accepting? The wolf that follows you across a meadow in broad daylight isn't chasing you, it's watching. And if the answer comes back wrong, if you're too loud, too tall, too unfamiliar, too much of a question mark, it takes the long way home instead. Stand on the other side of that for a moment. Picture what you look like to an animal running that math. You don't sprint, you don't freeze, you walk upright, slow and certain, the way nothing in its world moves unless it has no reason to run. You smell like chemicals it has no category for. You carry objects it cannot identify. You are not prey, you are something else, and the safe bet, almost always, is to let you pass. Now, the obvious objection. Because it's fair, and it needs to be said out loud. Man-eaters exist, real ones. In India's Sundarbans, tigers have stalked fishermen through the mangroves and killed them in broad daylight. In 2024, a saltwater crocodile in northern Australia's Bulla community followed children and adults for months before it was finally caught and killed. Those cases are real. But look at what they actually have in common. In places like the Sundarbans, low prey availability, frequent human exposure, difficult terrain, and individual animal behavior can push that calculation in a very different direction. Crocodiles are different. In water, the ecological balance changes. Humans lose mobility, visibility, and many of the advantages they have on land. The same rules cannot simply be carried from a mountain trail into a crocodile's river. The exceptions don't break the pattern. They draw the edges of it. But here's where the whole thing turns into something harder to explain with the word instinct. In 2020, a team from UNSU Sydney and the Botswana Predator Conservation Trust published a study in communications biology that sounds almost absurdly simple. They painted eyes on the backsides of cattle, large artificial eye spots on the rumps, facing backward. Then they watched for 4 years. In that time, not a single cow with painted eyes was killed by a lion or a leopard. 15 unpainted cattle from the same herds were taken. Even cows painted with simple crosses, not eyes, just marks, survived at higher rates. For an ambush predator, anything that disrupts surprise may matter. Eye spots worked best, but even simple markings appeared to help. Whatever the mechanism, fake eyes changed the odds. Now hold that, because the same trick was tried somewhere else, with a very different result. In 1986, fishermen in India's Sundarbans started wearing rubber masks on the back of their heads, human faces, staring backward. The logic was the same. Tigers almost always attack from behind. If they think you're watching, they don't charge. And it worked. Attacks dropped to nearly zero. The whole community adopted the masks. For a while, the mangroves got quieter. Then, a few years later, the attacks came back. Reports suggested that the masks became less reliable. But why is harder to prove? Tigers may have habituated to the cue, conditions may have changed, or some animals may have learned that the backward face was not a reliable signal of attention. The interesting part isn't that we know which explanation is right. It's that a trick based on being seen did not remain equally reliable forever. A similar idea, making an ambush predator think its approach may have been detected, produced a very different long-term outcome in the Sundarbans. Same principle, different outcome. And nobody can say for certain what changed inside the animal that made the difference. We can collar a wolf across 14 years of Wyoming winters and map every kill, every detour, every time it chose the longer route to avoid a parking lot. We can paint eyes on a cow and watch a lion walk away. We can put a mask on a fisherman and watch a tiger hesitate. What we cannot do is get behind those eyes and know what moves through the animal in the moment it decides. Whether the thing it feels when it watches you is fear or arithmetic, or something we don't have a word for yet. Maybe what it's called doesn't matter. What matters is the output. The animal sees you. It runs its own version of the math, and almost every time, it keeps its distance. Almost everywhere on land, the pattern holds. The predator watches, weighs, and walks away. The Sundarbans is the place where almost lives. Somewhere in the Sundarbans right now, there are fishermen who still walk into the mangroves. They tried the masks. The masks worked. Then they didn't. And the fishermen went back anyway, because the forest is how they feed their families. They step into those trees knowing something in there has already solved the last trick they tried, knowing it watches from behind, knowing the face on the back of the head no longer means anything. And most of them come home. Not all, but most. Not because the tiger can't reach them, not because the forest got safer. Because most of the time, for reasons no one can fully name, something in the dark weighs them, reads them, and decides, not this one, not today. So the next time you're on that trail and you feel something behind you, something keeping pace, something that smelled you before you saw it and has been watching longer than you know, remember what's actually happening. It already decided. It weighed you, the way it weighs everything, and it chose to let you walk. The thing is, we get to choose too. Whether those animals keep enough forest to hunt in, enough prey to stay fed, enough room that the math keeps coming out in everyone's favor, that part's on us. But right now, on that trail, you were never the prey. You were the question, and it chose not to answer.